Running, Jumping, Caught by WordsOfWilderness. Regulus clung to the letter hidden away under the table. It cracked and wrinkled at the edges. The Dark Lord will visit over the break. You will take the mark. Regulus' heart hammered away in his chest. He'd suspected this day might come, but so soon? He hadn't even graduated yet. He was supposed to have more time. He risked a glance across the great hall, at the Gryffindor table. James was laughing, carefree at something Sirius had said, nearly knocking his pumpkin juice all over his scrambled eggs. They'd only been together for a couple of months. Now it seemed foolish that he'd pushed James away for so long. So much time wasted. Regulus bit into his bottom lip, taking a deep breath. He grabbed the quill from his bag. Flipping the letter over, he scribbled down a quick message before he could change his mind. If I jump, will you catch me? With practiced hands, he folded it under the table, sending the little paper earlobe off with a non-verbal spell. It flew across the great hall, waving between students' legs and chairs before arriving at the Gryffindor table. It pecked at James's shoulder. James met Regulus's gaze with a raised eyebrow, but his grin disappeared when he saw Regulus's distressed expression. It fell further when he skimmed over the original contents of the letter. Scribbling down a reply, James drew Sirius's attention. He nudged James with a shoulder, though Regulus couldn't hear what was said. It was clear that it was about the letter, from how he tried to peek at it. James was quick to pull away, folding it back up under the table as Regulus had done. As the letter made its way back across the great hall, Regulus gripped the wood of the bench he was sitting on. He wouldn't be surprised if he left marks there, his fear forever etched into the castle furniture. As soon as the paper earlobe was within reach, Regulus yanked it open. The ink was smudged from not being allowed to dry before it was being folded. Still, the one word James always written below Regulus's question was easy to make out. Always. Across the hall, James was sneaking pleading glances at him. With shaking hands, Regulus stood up from the Slytherin table. A few of the people who were sitting nearby raised an eyebrow at him, but Regulus didn't let it deter him. Maybe he should let it. He sucked in a breath, putting one foot in front of the other. This was a terrible idea, a terrible, awful, stupid idea, but he couldn't get stuck in that house. He needed to do something. Throw a caution into the wind, no matter how every fibre of him told him not to. His skin crawled with it. Why was the distance between the tables so long all of a sudden? He could feel the glances of the other students, a Slytherin walking over the Gryffindor table. Maybe he should turn around, or pretend he only had something to say to his brother. He could find another solution, something less drastic. Regulus rounded the corner of the Gryffindor table, making the conversation taking place farther down into hearing range. Come on, Prongs, you can tell me. I can keep a secret, you know that, Sirius coaxed, throwing an arm over James's shoulder. Yeah, I know, but it isn't mine to share. James sighed, a bit of frustration creeping into his voice. It was hard for Regulus not to let his heart melt at hearing James stand by him like that. When he'd originally got together, Regulus had insisted they keep their relationship a secret, even from James's friends. It was too big of a risk. It couldn't get back to his parent, not under any circumstances. Sirius had barely escaped alive when they'd found him out about Lupin. Regulus didn't want to know what they'd do to him. James, Regulus hissed in a near whisper, all too aware of the amount of people who kept an eye on him. James's head swung around, his lips turned up into a smile that was clearly forced. Regulus knew him too well to not see the anxiety hidden behind it. The very same anxiety that Regulus had pressing his nail into the base of his hand. It was Sirius who broke the tension in the air around him. Since when are you two on first-name basis? He frowned, his eye flicking between James and Regulus. James's eye widened in realization of Regulus's slip-up. Regulus had always been careful about how he addressed James. when others were nearby. It had to appear as if he only tolerated James's presence due to Sirius, as if nothing had changed between them. Sirius had pressed Regulus on it before, arguing that they were basically brothers. Predictably, that argument hadn't gone down well, but the slip-up wouldn't matter for much longer anymore, not with what Regulus planned to do. Taking a deep breath, Regulus pulled James by his collar. Before he could overthink what he was doing anymore, he connected their lips. And James, oh beautiful, lovely James, understood immediately. A hand weaving into the curls at the nape of Regulus's neck, James kissed him back, soft and tender, like they so often had done, scheduled atop the astronomy tower or in some secret passageway. And Regulus was caught. He was safe in James's arms, tugging him closer. There was a rush to it, of not hiding anymore. It was a risk, a giant one, but let them know then. Let them know that he was done playing their perfect little son. He wasn't going to spend the rest of his life trapped in that house. He wouldn't take the mark, and he wouldn't be bound to that man. Whatever the wrath of his parents would be, that would be far worse. And when it would come, he would have James by his side as he faced it. Mumbling was growing in the great hall around them. Regulus tensed up, unease crawling down his back. James noticed and shifted immediately, taking Regulus's face between his hands, and he whispered, "Hey, love, focus on me, yeah?" Tentatively, Regulus nodded. James scooted into the side of the bench, weaving a hand into Regulus's. As he tugged lightly for Regulus to sit down with him, Regulus braved a glance around the great hall. Everyone was looking at them, straight necks stretched to be able to see past the other students, like they were some kind of zoo animals to gawk at. Well, it wasn't like he was going back to the Slytherin table. He'd be eaten alive over there for what he'd done. The people around James gave him a quick smile in greeting as he sat down. Thankfully, they left him alone other than that. They didn't stare at him in the same way the rest of the school seemed determined to. It made him feel a little less out of place in his green uniform amidst a sea of red. James didn't let go of his hand, tugging a curl behind Regulus's ear. He smiled, not the forced kind like before, but warm, kind. Regulus could feel down his bones. But the warm kind Regulus could feel down his bones. It washed away the worst of his nerves, enough that he looked past James for the first time to see Sirius, who sat beside him. His mouth was wide open, as if he hadn't quite comprehended what had just happened. As soon as Regulus met his eyes, something snapped. "James," Sirius hissed, "what did you do now?" James opened and closed his mouth, as if unable to find a way to respond. Regulus tightened his hold on James's hand, glaring daggers at Sirius. It took a second, but eventually Sirius faltered. A needle punctured his bottle. He fell into himself, shouldered hunched, and he looked between Regulus and James. Regulus fiddled with the hem of his robes underneath the table. He hadn't expected Sirius to react badly, not with the open secret that he and Lupin were, but Sirius' approval, it still meant the world to Regulus. "Are you okay?" Sirius asked, his voice cracking a bit. Regulus nodded. He was okay, wasn't he? At least he was going to be. "Mother sent me a letter. They want me to take the mock," Regulus explained. "I won't do it." James caressed the back of Regulus's hand, giving it an encouraging squeeze. I can't go back to that house," Regulus continued, his voice quiet as a whisper. But Sirius heard it anyway. Offering a small smile, he said, "I know." And he would, wouldn't he? If anyone understood, it was Sirius, and I guess I'm happy for the two of you then, Sirius continued, waving his hand in their direction. "But you're not off the hook, though, James. My brother, really?" Sirius said, turning his face only to James. The two continued to argue back and forth. It was a tone of banter Regulus already knew he'd better get used to. He'd be able to spend the breaks with Sirius again. Probably at the Potters, like James had offered countless times. He'd get his big brother back. Maybe they could even be a proper family, the two of them. Regulus smiled at that. Hello, I hope you enjoyed watching this video or listening to it, I suppose. Have a very nice day. Oh, and I will put the link in the description so you can check this fic out and give kudos to the author because it's what they deserve. Have a very nice day and bye.